Recording in progress.
Good evening, and welcome to the City of Tuscaloosa Zoning Board of Adjustment. For the record, today is July the 25th, 2022. My name is Robert Ennis, and I'm chairman of the board, and I'll ask the board members to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Michelle Coley, supernumerary.
Paul Rollins Jr.
Linda Ford.
Andrew Robertson.
Thank you, and I'll just like to mention Ms. Coley will be sitting in as acting vice chair tonight, and that's a very important role, as you'll see, with the board. Tonight, we're also joined by our excellent city staff. We have Ms. Emily Hayes, Neighborhood Resource Coordinator, Ms. Angie Terrell, Administrative Assistant. We have Mr. Brett Blackburn from the Office of the City Engineer. We have Mr. Kevin Jones in the back with video production. We were just joined by Deputy City Attorney Otto Tuamakomo and Mr. Will Smith, Associate Director of Planning. Now, this is the Zoning Board of Adjustment of the City of Tuscaloosa. As such, this board does not adopt zoning laws. This board does not decide what the zoning laws of the city will be. That is the role of the City Council of the City of Tuscaloosa. This board has three areas of jurisdiction. The first is this board will hear appeals from the decisions of the zoning officer and to the board about a ruling the zoning officer's made. Those are relatively rare to have occur. The other is the board will hear special exceptions. Now that is where the City Council, in adopting a zoning ordinance, will allow certain uses only when certain terms and conditions are met, such as short-term rental. And so the City Council said, we're going to allow short-term rental if the zoning board finds these conditions. And so on short-term rental, that's a special exception, and the board is looking at conditions. This board does not decide whether or not short-term rental will occur. It decides on what terms and conditions it will occur. Now, there are some occasions when the board will say, we're not going to grant a permit for short-term rental. I don't believe we have any of those cases tonight. We did last month, but not tonight. And the third is a variance. A variance means that the literal enforcement of the zoning laws of the city would create a hardship. Now, that doesn't mean it's an inconvenience or it's difficult or it's going to cost me more money. It means that the land cannot be used reasonably within the terms and conditions of that zoning classification. And that's a hardship, and I believe we have three of those tonight, and all the rest are short-term rentals. Now, I won't go into any of the other detail on that. A word in regard to subdivision covenants and homeowners associations. That is a private matter between the members of the association and their association or their subdivision board, and this board has no jurisdiction on that. Now, we had sign-up sheets out front. If you wanted to speak, you could sign up on a sign-up sheet, and we would call your name on the case you signed up for, but that doesn't mean you can't speak if you didn't sign up. Anybody who wishes to speak on a case may come and speak on that case. Now, this is a public hearing. It is being recorded, it is being videotaped, it is being streamed on the web, and it's being broadcast over multiple cable networks. So, please engage in proper and civil decorum and treatment of your fellow participants. When you come to the podium, speak directly into the mic and speak to the board. Please don't engage the staff in conversation or the members of the audience. Normally, the board doesn't, but on occasion, the board does limit times for public participation to 3 minutes a speaker. I don't believe we're going to be using that tonight. Well, okay, we probably won't be using that tonight. If we do, it'll be a 3-minute limit per person. Now, I'll ask the staff if they provided notice is required by law to all petitioners coming before the board.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, the procedure we'll follow for each case is that staff will come to the podium and they will present the case to the board. That will be presented in a series of photographs and maps and drawings on the screen behind us. The board will be viewing the same in front of us, on the screens in front of us. After the staff finishes their presentation, then the petitioner or the petitioner's representatives will come to the podium and they'll answer any questions or provide any further details on that particular case that may be necessary. After that, anyone who wishes to speak for or against that petition may do so under the terms I outlined previously. Then we will turn, and each board member will give their comments and perspectives on each case. The reason we do that is because any case can be appealed to the Circuit Court of Tuscaloosa County. And in order to do that, a transcript of these proceedings must be made, and the court will look at that transcript to frame the issues for each case. So the court, in essence, wants to know how the board viewed that case. The procedure we follow is that we will begin with the vice chair, who will frame the issues for the board and state her perceptions of the case, and they will proceed from there. After that, we will go to the vote. Now, here are two things. First of all, there has to be 4 votes to approve a petition. There are 5 of us up here, but there has to be 4 votes in favor. If the petition gets 3 votes, it fails. One other thing is that we have I lost my place. Okay, a standing motion to approve. You may notice that for each petition, I will state the motion in the affirmative along with conditions for short-term rentals. That motion does not require a second, and it will be stated, as I said, in the affirmative. And then we will begin the vote from my left to my right, voting yes or no. So the fact that it is stated in the affirmative and the fact that it doesn't have a second are not fatal to the motion. Okay? Now, I'll ask if any of the board members have a conflict of interest they wish to declare at this time.
No.
No conflicts of interest. Pursuant to Iowa Code 11-52-81, 1975, any party aggrieved by a decision of the Zoning Board of Adjustment may appeal such a decision to the Circuit Court within 15 days thereafter. Are there any changes to the agenda other than ones we're aware of?
No, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Now, I believe we have 4 sets of minutes to approve: January 2022, February 2022, June 2021, and April 2022. Is that correct? Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 those minutes are approved. We will now begin with our first case, please.
Okay, before we get into the cases tonight, we do have just our monthly framework update. Just last week, July 20th, we had our Lake Districts meeting with the Planning Commission. You see there are 3 proposed Lake District: residential, multifamily, and commercial. And this is just a quick overview of, for example, Lake Residential, single family, detached, larger lots, and just kind of what the purpose of that is. Think of this as a lot of what's existing on the lake today. And just an example of the table for this one. Some of these, of course, is what's being discussed, such as lot area and lot width. Lake multifamily, believe it or not, there's a couple lots on Lake Tuscaloosa that are zoned multifamily today. So this will be likely to replace those. It talks about still protecting the water quality, being compatible with the character of the surrounding areas, low to medium density. And light commercial. Pretty self-explanatory there. Some of the notes that came from the discussion, talking about adding building material standards for all 3 lake zones, clarifying that the height may be measured in stories rather than feet due to some of the topography changes along the lake, and talking about implementing vegetative buffers from the acquisition line inwards towards the property.
That's what I was going to ask, from the acquisition line.
Yes, sir.
'Cause there are places that the acquisition can run 100 feet or more. and
Right.
Places that only runs 10 feet.
Right, and in that discussion, while some are 100 feet or more, some are right off of a cliff, so we're trying to look at ways to codify the differences between those types of lots. Yeah, here's a good example. So it would allow a gazebo, pier, or walkway down to the lake, but no permanent structures, no real structures. You've got to leave trees and grass and shrubbery and that kind of thing. So you can see good examples of some pictures. Right.
Are the regulations going to address septic tanks?
They will. It addresses a lot about sewer expansion areas on the lake. It's not gonna change like the 300-foot setback from the water or anything like that. Is there a specific issue with septic tanks that you were asking about how it will address it, or?
No, but septic tanks need to be required where there's not sewer available.
Yes.
And they need to be, it's very important that the septic tanks need to be maintained. Because when a septic tank is failing, people don't know it's failing.
That's
They think
right.
it's working fine. But
That's
I'm just,
right. Yeah.
it would, and structures on the lake, like a pier permit, will that be taken over by zoning, or will that still exist?
No, it'd still be lakes. Yeah, it'd still be lake subdivision.
Thank you.
But there might be, and it might be in the subregs, our new subdivision regulations or zoning ordinance that may require a certain width, for example, to have one. But that's something that we're not quite there yet. The next one is August 17th. We're looking at downtown, possibly downtown perimeter and some other sections. So that ought to be a good meeting to come to or watch, and likely have some good public participation in that one as well. We are asking that the voting on the proposed updates be continued to the August 22 meeting, and then we can get into our first case.
You know, I appointed Mr. Vice Chairman Stewart to a committee, and Ms. Ford and Ms. Coley, y'all on that committee, and I expect a report
Right.
by that committee.
Right. Okay. And Ms. Hayes will be here to take over from here.
Okay, so we'll start with our cases. ZBA 7422 was withdrawn by staff. ZBA 77, 78, 79, and 8022 are all being continued to the August 2022 meeting. So moving on to our first case of the night, ZBA 7322, Edward Hackett Jr. petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property in a historic district located at 603 29th Avenue, zoned BGOH DROD, Council District 1. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And a closer aerial view of that property. There's a view from the street. It's a view of the parking on the street and a view of the parking itself. Applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. The house is 2 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms, no violations or complaints. They are requesting 2 vehicles and 4 adults. If approved, staff recommends 2 vehicles and 4 adults. Do you have any questions for staff?
I do. Do you know how many parking spaces are actually there and how many are required because of the number of bedrooms?
So we know for sure that it is at least 1 per bedroom, but was Mike ever able to really figure out? We know for sure that it's 1 per bedroom, though.
I counted 12 off-street, and I know they were given some allowance for on-street. But one of the parking spaces is used for the trash bins. It's, I think, 6 feet in width, 6.5 feet in width.
Yeah.
So that cannot be used for parking, I assume. It's under the tree to the, so.
I'm sorry, Ms. Ford, can you repeat the question?
My question was, how many, they have 1-to-1 right now, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, if they have short-term rental, there's going to be 2. They have, if they're allowed 2 parking spaces for 1 bedroom, correct?
Well, they are 2-bedroom townhomes.
Right.
So they should have, they should have two parking spaces, one for each bedroom.
Is there any way, I guess we could put in the minutes that they must be parked off-street?
Oh, that's,
Yes, absolutely.
So-
And that-
Because
yeah,
they
they
have to be
are,
parked
well,
in
they are
here.
allowed to have some on-street parking.
Yeah,
yeah, and maybe
mean,
the
the-
petitioner can shine some light
Okay.
into the parking situation as well.
Okay,
definitely.
all right, thank you.
Do you have any more questions for staff? Petitioner is here in person.
yes, sir.
Evening, everyone. Yeah, as in regards to the parking situation, according to,
Give us
State your name and
oh,
address.
sorry. My name is Edward Hackett Jr., and I live at 603 29th Avenue.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and address the parking.
Okay, the parking, I mean, there's a total of 6 units, and there's 12 spots in the HOA. There's 2 units, 2 parking spaces designated per unit. So for 4 adults, I think the rules were for a pair of adults, that's 1 car, so there are 2 spots for cars in the parking lot out back there. And that's a private parking lot.
But the spaces are not designated.
No, ma'am, but they are enforced. I mean, we do, it's a pretty small complex. So when we see people coming in, we ask them to move. If not, we call for them to get booted or towed. It's kind of a hard lot to tow out of.
So how would they know if you had a short-term rental? How would you have a pass or something for them to know that they are a short-term rental?
I mean, a pass is definitely one option. I've talked about with a couple of the owners, but it's a small community. I usually see everyone on a daily or every few day basis, so I just kind of let everyone know what's going on. But I think the pass option is probably the easiest way, just to make it plain and obvious for everyone.
Have you had short-term rental before?
No,
Have
ma'am.
you-
Not at this point, no, ma'am.
Okay, and where will you be going?
My folks live down off of 19th Avenue, so either we're there or I travel for work a lot, and my wife sees her family a lot. So I mean, we just kind of. But the primary, the primary thing we're
In
looking
the
at is
event
just
there's
the
a
folks' place.
problem at 3 o'clock in the morning,
That's me.
happens, who will be called?
Me, myself.
What if you're out of town?
If I'm out of town, then my wife is in town typically. I know I said we travel a lot, but I mean the primary plan is to just stay at my
Have you engaged, you've already answered that, but do you have a list of rules and regulations that you can post there and contact information that you'll post there for short-term rental?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I didn't include it in the packet. I didn't know if that was
Okay.
necessary.
Any other questions?
No,
Any
thank
other
you.
questions? Thank you, sir.
Great, thank you.
Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? Anything further? We'll begin our comments with Ms. Coley.
So I'm in favor of this short-term rental, 30 nights per year, first year getting started, and then with the 2 spaces off-street parking, that stipulation needs to be put in there. So 4 adults, 2 vehicles, 30 nights, 1 year.
The off-street parking requirements in the code. It's in the code, okay. I agree with Ms. Coley.
I agree.
when I first saw the parking lot, I had a little bit of a problem with it because the spaces are extremely narrow. I think if you had a Ram truck, you wouldn't be able to get it in there. But under these circumstances, I also am in favor of this.
I'm in favor as well. 2 vehicles, 4 adults, 30 nights per year for 1 year.
Thank you. That being the case, the motion is as follows. In regard to ZBA 7322, to approve the petition of Edward G. Hackett Jr. for a special exception to allow short-term rental of property in a historic district located at 603 29th Avenue zoned BGO-H DROD, Council District 1, subject to the following conditions. A limit of 4 adults, a limit of 2 vehicles parked off-street, a limit of 30 nights per year, a limit of 1 year. Accessory structures may never be occupied, and a business license must be obtained prior to engaging in short-term rental operations. That is the motion. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 that petition is approved. Next case.
Okay, moving on to ZBA 7522, Seth Terrell petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 21 Brook Meadows Circle, zoned R4, Council District 7. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view of that property. And a view from the street. Applicable regulations. The new short-term rental request is 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, no violations or complaints. The request is for 3 vehicles and 6 adults. If approved, staff recommends 3 vehicles and 6 adults. Have any questions for staff?
Thank you.
Thanks. Petitioner is here in person. We had 1 letter of support.
Yes, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please come up and, that's okay. Just give us your name and address, please, sir.
Seth Terrell, 2 Ridgeland, Tuscaloosa.
Okay. And have you engaged in short-term rental operations before?
Well, I attempted to in my basement not too long ago, or in my house in Ridgeland not too long ago, and it caused an uproar in our neighborhood. So I cut it down so that I wouldn't get kicked out of the neighborhood.
So this is your first
This is
try?
my first, yes.
Okay. Have you developed rules and regulations for the use of the property?
I mean, loosely. And when we were originally going to do it, we just had a number of people that can be here and stay here, and then, you know, we had like a lights out, not lights out, but a quiet hours after 10 o'clock. That's kind of
And your contact information?
Yeah, my contact information is there. I actually have someone who I own another house in that has a guy who will kind of run it for me, who will be on site.
Oh, okay.
And so it's very accessible.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
All right, great, thanks.
Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? We'll begin our comments with Ms. Coley.
I'm in favor of this petition with recommendation, 6 adults, 3 vehicles, 30 nights per year, and 1 year.
I agree with Ms. Coley.
I agree. I'm in favor.
I'm also in favor, I agree.
I'm in favor as well.
I failed to mention this on the first case, and I'll mention it now to both you petitioners. The first year of STR operations are 1 year. You have to come back for your next year because you're on probation, and we're going to see how it goes. So if there are problems, if the police are out or something else, or we get calls into 311, it goes into your file. So when we see you here next year, we're going to have a conversation, and we don't want to do that. But for that first year, you're on probation, so just be aware of that, please. And then after that, for the renewal, it's 3 years and 45 nights per year after that, okay? I'm sorry I didn't mention that before. We're ready for the motion. I'm sorry, Mr. Okay. The motion is as follows in regard to ZBA 7522, to approve the petition of Seth Terrell for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of property located at 21 Brook Meadows, zoned R4, Council District 7, subject to the following terms and conditions: a limit of 6 adults, a limit of 3 vehicles, a limit of 30 nights per year, a limit of 1 year. Accessory structures may never be occupied, and a business license must be obtained prior to short-term rental operations. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 that petition is approved. Next case.
And moving on, ZBA 7622, Joshua Halfer petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 17 Brook Meadows Circle, zoned R4, Council District 7. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And a closer aerial view of that property just a few doors down from the last one. View from the street.
That's
Applicable regulations. The new short-term rental request, it is a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house, no violations or complaints. They're requesting 4 vehicles and 8 adults. If approved, staff recommends 3 vehicles and 6 adults. Do y'all have any questions for staff?
I don't mean to steal Ms. Ford's thunder, but
No,
she brought up
please.
a very good point. Were you getting ready to make your
No,
point?
no, no, go ahead, please.
Well, Ms. Ford brought up the point of that photograph you just showed, shows
Mm-hmm.
a storm sewer directly in front of this unit. So that can't be really counted as a parking space.
So none of the parking spaces are
Assigned.
reserved for anyone. It's just basically first come, first serve.
I just, for the record, that's not a parking space. Did you want to elaborate on that?
No, I know in the petition, it was stated that there were parking spots in front of each unit, and they might be there, but they're not usable. So that's all I wanted to point out.
Thank you.
The petitioner is here on Zoom. We had the 1 letter of support for this one as well.
Yes, so this is Josh Halford, obviously position 17 Brook Meadows Circle. You're right on the picture. There is the storm drain there. There's 2 spots in front of directly in front of the house. But as Emily stated, there's community parking and there's 4 decals. So, it's regulated and all that, but I have 4 spaces with the property.
Okay. Mr. Halford, have you engaged in short-term rental operations previously?
This would be my first one.
This will be your first one.
Yes.
Who will be your contact person in Tuscaloosa?
So I've got a graduate student that's that I grew up, younger than me, obviously, but I grew up around, and they're gonna manage it. And I've also just recently started talking with Duckworth Realty about, they have a person that manages short-term rentals, and that's something that I'm kind of starting to lean towards now. So one of the two.
So in the event that the police are there at 3 o'clock in the morning, they will be able to reach out and find you or someone else?
That's exactly right, yes, sir.
Okay. And you have developed rules and regulations for the conduct of your tenants?
I have. Obviously, I don't have a listing up until all this gets approved. But, depending on what you guys say, that obviously the parking space restrictions, the maximum number of people that you guys approve, which I'm hoping for 8, because it's a 4-bedroom. And then also, no smoking, no parties, no pets, and then quiet hours as the last petitioner stated as well.
Did you happen to hear what I just said about being on probation for the first year and the event is granted?
I sure did.
Okay, good. Are there any other questions for Mr. Halford? Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? We'll begin our board comments with Ms. Coley.
So with this, Mr. Halford, being your first year, I'm comfortable with recommending 6 adults, 3 vehicles, 30 nights, and 1 year. And then if you have no problems when you come back, then perhaps we can look at that time, bumping it to what you're requesting now. But right now, 6 adults, 3 vehicles, 30 nights, 1 year.
I agree with Ms. Coley.
I agree as well.
Also agree.
I agree.
That being the case, the motion is as follows. In regard to ZBA 7622, to approve the petition of Joshua Halford for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of property located at 17 Brook Meadows Circle, zoned R4A, Council District 7, subject to the following terms and conditions: a limit of 6 adults, a limit of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a limit of 30 nights per year, a limit of 1 year. Accessory structures may never be occupied, and a business license must be obtained prior to engaging in short-term rental operations. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 that petition is approved. Next case.
Move on to ZBA 8122, Jackson, Vaughn, Gambrel petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 1623 Woodridge Road, zoned R1, Council District 3. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view of that property. There's a view from the street. And then one of the driveway. Applicable regulations. This is a short-term rental renewal. The house is 4 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms, no violations or complaints. The previous approval was for 4 vehicles and 8 adults, 30 nights per year. The current request is for 4 vehicles and 8 adults, 4 vehicles, 8 adults, and 45 nights per year, as well as for 3 years. If approved, staff recommends 4 vehicles and 8 adults. Do you have any questions for staff?
Thank you, Ms. Hayes.
The petitioner is here on Zoom.
Do we have the petitioner? On Zoom. I'm sorry, there we go.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, Mr. Gambrel, I know, did you have any problems last year? Did you engage in short-term rentals last year?
We did 10 nights last year, and we're probably aiming to do the same this year, so we won't even come close to that 45 number.
Do you have any problems?
We didn't have any issues. It was surprisingly overwhelmingly positive. Most of the renters that we had were actually the students' parents or grandparents. So we didn't have any issues with them.
All right. And I know we went over this last year, but where are you located, and can we get in touch with you if there's a problem?
We're just staying over at my parents' house whenever we rent, so it's just about 2 miles away. So not far at all.
Okay, good. All right, any other questions of Mr. Gambrel? Thank you, Mr. Gambrel. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak for or against this petition? We'll begin our comments with Ms. Coley.
This is a renewal, so I'm in favor of this. No problems reported, so that's good. Recommendation, 8 adults, 4 vehicles, 45 nights per year with 3 years renewal.
I agree with Ms. Coley.
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
I agree as well.
Thank you. This is the motion as follows. In regard to ZBA 81-22, to approve the petition of Jackson Gambrel for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of property located at 1623 Woodridge Road, zoned R1, Council District 3, subject to the following terms and conditions: a limit of 8 adults, a limit of 4 vehicles parked off-street, a limit of 45 nights per year, a limit of 3 years. Accessory structures may never be occupied, and a business license must be obtained prior to engaging in short-term rental operations. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 that petition is approved. Next case.
Okay, ZBA 8222, Katrin and Andreas Schalk petition for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 3845 Woodland Hills Drive, zoned R1, Council District 6. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view of that property. View from the street. View of the driveway. And just the other side of the house with the camper. Applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. The house is 3 bedrooms and 2.5 bathrooms, no violations or complaints. The request is for 6 vehicles and 6 to 8 adults. If approved, staff recommends 3 vehicles and 6 adults. Do I have any questions for staff?
Thank you, Ms. Hayes.
Petitioners are here in person. We got 2 letters of opposition that were sent to y'all.
Would the petitioner please give us your name and address, sir?
My name is Andreas Schalk and 96 Sweet Hole Road in Plastown, New Hampshire.
So this is not your residence?
This is not my residence, no. Well, we own the property and we lived here for about 15 years. We just moved up to New Hampshire, and that's why we want to rent it out.
And I'll ask the same question. Have you engaged in short-term rental operations?
Not yet.
No?
No.
Who will be the local contact person in the event of
That will
problem?
be Josh Dockery. He's managing the property as of now. He's basically doing repairs, cutting the lawn. He lives about half a mile away.
So there, you have a management company?
It's not a management company, but it's I hired a person to take care of the property.
And you understand if we grant this, it'll be for 1 year on probation?
Yes,
And if there's a problem, there will be difficulty in renewal until those problems
Absolutely.
are resolved. Do we have any further? Oh,
I'm-
excuse me.
Oh,
go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I'm just curious as to why you're requesting 6 vehicles.
these parking spaces are there. I mean, we've got 3 parking spaces on one side, about 4 parking spaces on the other side, plus the garage. So it's plenty of room for vehicles to park there.
Typically, we don't like to tandem park more than 2 cars.
That's fine. If it's 3 vehicles, that's fine with us.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? I believe we have received 2 emails in opposition. All right, everybody received those. We'll begin our comments with Ms. Coley.
So just before I say my comment, I would like to just say with the people who've expressed their opposition, you know, the city has said that you can have short-term rental all over the city of Tuscaloosa. So it is not for the board to decide if they can have, we just say what nights and that time, because the city council has already stated that they can have short-term rental. So for this one, with it being the first time that they're having short-term rental, I'm comfortable with 6 adults, 3 vehicles for 30 nights, 1 year.
I agree with Ms. Coley.
I agree.
I also agree, but I want to remind the people with the letters of opposition that if they do have any problem, to please, refer that to 311 so that there can be record of any issues they might have that is disturbing to their neighborhood.
I agree as well.
Thank you. That being the case, the motion is as follows. In regard to ZBA 8222, to approve the petition of Katrina Andrea Solk for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of property located at 3845 Woodland Hills Drive, zoned R1, Council District 6, subject to the following terms and conditions: a limit of 6 adults, a limit of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a limit of 30 nights per year, a limit of 1 year. Accessory structures may never be occupied, and a business license must be obtained prior to engaging in short-term rental operations. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 that petition is approved. Next case.
Okay, ZBA 8322, Chenevel and Cousette petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 101 39th Street, zoned R1, Council District 7. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. Then a closer aerial view of that property. View from the street. And then a view of that driveway.
So hold that image. If y'all remember last year, there was concern about the parking. I think we didn't have that,
It wasn't, this
that
is brand
extra
new.
area, but the
It was gravel
petitioner's
before.
gone in and paved that now so that there's more convenient parking. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Then the applicable regulations. So, correct, this is a short-term rental renewal. The house is 3 bedrooms and 1 bathroom, no violations or complaints. Previous approval was for 2 vehicles, 4 adults, and 30 nights. The current request is for 3 vehicles, 6 adults, 45 nights, and 3 years. If approved, staff recommends 3 vehicles and 6 adults. Do y'all have any questions for staff?
Thank you, Ms. Hayes.
Petitioner is here in person.
Yes, ma'am. Would you give us your name and address, please?
Hello, I'm Chanel Blanc-Cousette.
Hello. Did you have any problems last year?
I didn't.
Did you rent?
I did.
You did.
I did.
And as I said, I see you paved that that area.
Yeah, last year I had spoken, I think it was Zach last year, but it was already gravel, but she told me I couldn't
Right,
use the
we didn't
gravel,
like-
so I just, he said I could
Yeah,
either
we
fill
didn't
it
like
out
the
with the
gravel.
gravel or concrete, but I just made it all.
Looks really good.
Okay. Thank you.
Looks really good. Do we have any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? We'll begin our board comments with Ms. Coley.
So Ms. Cousette, with the upgrades that have been made, that allows us to be able to upgrade you from 4 and 2 to 6 adults and 3 vehicles. I'm okay with that, 45 nights and 3 years.
I agree with Ms. Coley.
I agree as well.
Also agree.
I agree.
Thank you. The motion is as follows in regard to ZBA 8322 to approve the petition of Cheveline Cosette for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of property located at 101 39th Street, zoned R1 Council District 7, subject to the following terms and conditions: a limit of 6 adults, a limit of 3 vehicles parked off-street, a limit of 45 nights per year, a limit of 3 years, accessory structures may never be occupied, and a business license must be obtained prior to engaging in short-term rental operations. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 that petition is approved. Next case.
Okay, and here's our last short-term rental of the night, ZBA 8422. Ralph Volley petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 2632 35th Street East, zoned R1, Council District 6. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view of that property. View from the street. Applicable regulations. This is a new short-term rental request. The house is 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, no violations or complaints. The request is for 4 vehicles and 6 adults. If approved, staff recommends 3 vehicles and 6 adults. Do y'all have any questions for staff?
I believe in regard to parking, city engineers recommended that while there be 3 vehicles, there be 1 parked in the garage. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks. Petitioner is here in person.
Would the petitioner please come forward?
Yeah, so Ms. Hayes spoke with the petitioner earlier, did say he'd be here, but obviously is not here in the room.
We'll move, let's just move on to the next case, and if they come, we'll come back to that.
Will do.
Okay, we'll move on. ZBA 8522, Al Cavanagh petitions for a variance from the University Area Neighborhood Regulations to allow the parking between the front facade and the front property line on the property located at 1402 9th Street, zoned RMF 2U, Council District 4. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. Then a closer aerial view of that property. View from the street. Applicable regulations, section 24-233 for the URD residential district regulations, specifically focusing on A, rules applicable to development sites. Parking is prohibited between the front facade of the structure and the front property line. The petitioner is requesting the variance to allow parking between the building and the street. This development was constructed prior to the enacting of the ordinance prohibiting parking between the building and the street in this location. Petitioner was approved for a condominium subdivision at the June 27th Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Under the condition, ZBA approves the location of the parking. The site cannot be reconfigured to construct parking that conforms to the ordinance without demolishing the building. 15 parking spaces are required. This is 1 per bedroom per code, and there are currently 18 spaces on the development that will remain. And this is just a site plan.
Let me just get this straight. We're not deciding on condominiums or not.
That was approved
That's the
last
planning
month.
commission's done
Right.
that. Okay. This is a prior non-conforming use as far as parking is concerned. Is that correct?
Just the parking itself is non-conforming.
And the fact that the planning commission approved it as condominiums, they somehow lost their prior non-conforming use status.
Right.
That's the issue here.
The parking itself is just the issue.
Right.
Yeah.
That status was lost when they went condominium.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, they would still be parking.
Right. Yes, sir. This would be fine if they hadn't condoed it.
Right.
Right.
So the only thing that's really changed is they somehow lost their status as prior non-conforming use.
For it to be condoed, it has to be a conforming property.
Right. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. But so the building and the property
Everything is conforming
predates the
except
University
for,
neighborhood
right.
plan.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Petitioner is here in person.
Now that we got that straightened out, Mr. Katz.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, I'm Al Cabinets with Cabinets Engineering, representing Gary Smith. He's with New Centennial Properties. He's done a couple of these in Tuscaloosa recently. I have the exact same question you had. It's an odd distinction there, but going through the condo process, which is really doesn't involve construction, it just involves a change in ownership, but that opens us up to having to conform to meet the subdivision regulations. So learn something every day, I guess. But anyway, so that's, this is one of those developments that was, kind of feels like it was built in the 60s, maybe late 50s, just the style and materials. And this, of course, was
Does
the
it work
prevailing
very
standard
well?
of pattern then. So,
Does it work very well making these types of conversions?
it does that. It opens up, a lot of these wind up being game day condos, kind of gets in a price point where a lot of people can afford a game day condo, and they really don't get that much use because they are game day condos. Sometimes a family with a couple of kids will actually buy one of these, and that's where their child will live in school. It won't be a game day in that case. It would be a residence that just kind of.
And for the record, in your opinion, there was adequate parking before it converted, and there's still adequate parking.
Yes, there'll be no change. Gary is doing quite a bit of rehabbing on these, completely redoing the interiors, new appliances, new cabinets, of course, new flooring and all. So they're getting rehabbed and.
And so the conversion to condo means that you can no longer, you cannot conform to the prevailing zoning requirements of university district, right? Is that right? As far as
Yes, sir.
parking.
Well, the subdivision regulations require that the property be conforming to the zoning ordinance if you are to condo it.
Right.
And so with this variance, they would be conforming otherwise.
So when they converted, that triggered that requirement.
Yes, sir.
Right, okay, all right. But otherwise, nothing is changing on the ground.
Right, other than the buildings being improved and rehabbed, nothing's changing. We're actually, a couple of the units will be converted to a clubhouse, game day type available room, so we're losing a couple of bedrooms, losing 4 bedrooms, I guess. So that if an owner, if 2 or 3 owners buy one of these each, want to group together and have a game day event there, they can rent their own common area, so.
And just for just to build the record, your client would not be able to successfully convert to condominium without this variance.
That's correct. Everything else conforms, but somehow going through that subdivision process, we lost the grandfathered parking.
Because there wouldn't be enough parking.
Right.
All right. Any questions?
Would be enough parking,
Would
or
not
where
be.
where the parking would have to be?
That's right, it's the location of the parking.
The parking would have to be in the
So-
center instead of
Correct.
on the,
Yeah,
okay.
There is no park, there is
So-
no center.
So you have enough parking, it's just, it would have to be located in the center.
It's exactly, it's
Okay.
where the location.
is
We've got,
Okay.
we've got really good new regulations. Several of us served on some of those boards where now the buildings are pushed closer to the street, and the parking is built back into behind the building, basically. So you're not just seeing a sea of cars. But when these were built, this was the prevailing pattern, and because of the conversion to condo process, we lost that grandfathered situation. So to get the entire, the buildings conform, the use conforms, the setbacks conform, it's just the parking that didn't conform now.
Any other questions, Mr. Capps? Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Capps. Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? We'll begin our board comments with Ms. Coley.
So after listening and going over this and looking at, I do see the hardship of having to conform to the new regulations and would ultimately have to tear down and rebuild, and that's the only thing that's stopping them from moving forward. So I do see the hardship, and I do agree with them being allowed to do it the way they've presented it to us.
I agree with Ms. Coley.
I agree, I'm in favor.
I'm in favor.
I'm in favor as well.
Thank you. The motion is as follows. In regard to ZBA 8522, to approve the petition of Al Cabnis for a variance from the University Area Neighborhood Regulations to allow parking between the front facade and front property line on property located at 1402 9th Street, zoned RMF 2U, Council District 4. And there are no conditions. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 that petition is approved. I'm not used to having no conditions. Trying to figure out where I am.
Okay. We'll move on to ZBA 8622, Joy and Enos Notombora petition for a variance from the residential setback regulations to allow the construction of an addition on the property located at 509 34th Avenue, zoned R3, Council District 1. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view of that property. It's a view of the property from the street. Applicable regulations, section 24-35, yards and usable open space, specifically with side yards. It's required 14 feet for 2 side yards with the aggregate width of both. Least width of either yard can be 5 feet. Petitioner is requesting to remove a portion of the existing house and construct an additional garage and deck. The home was constructed in the 50s and predates the zoning ordinance, thus it is considered legal nonconforming. Many homes within the surrounding area also do not conform with the R3 standards. The proposed deck will sit 2 feet, 1 1/4 inch from the southern property line. In addition, they want to add a laundry room and garage to the northeastern portion of the home. This addition will sit approximately 5 foot, 4 3/4 inches from the property line. Here's a survey of the existing lot. And then the addition itself. It's a little difficult to see. I don't know why it didn't. Oh, there we go.
So the house itself is built over the setbacks as.
Right, exactly. So this isn't expanding the house itself's nonconformity. House itself is already nonconforming. So on the one side, that northeastern portion of it is where that mudroom garage is going to go. And then the southern portion highlighted is where that deck is going to be. And that's going to sit 2 feet, 1 4 inches from the line. They did speak with building and fire, and we're able to agree on some certain materials, which it has to be 1 hour fire rated. And I believe they agreed on steel as well, steel and hardy board.
Do you, are those, do you want those in the motion, or do you, or has that already been resolved?
That's already been resolved.
Okay. Any questions of Ms. Hayes? Thank you, ma'am.
Petitioners are here in person.
Okay. Would the petitioner please come up? Good evening.
Joy Tambora.
Yes, ma'am. Do we have any questions of Ms. Tambora? I think we understand the issues that are involved.
Would you give your address? I think you just.
509 34th Avenue.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? We'll begin the board comments with Ms. Coley.
So I do see the hardship here because of the lot size dating back to the 1950s before the zoning ordinance. So I do see it, so I am in favor of granting the hardship.
I agree with Ms. Coley.
I agree.
I want to say that this property is very fortunate that it has an alley through the back of it, and you're able to utilize that. I am absolutely in favor of it. I think it's going to definitely improve the property. And as you said in your petition, I think it's going to be the start of building that neighborhood up.
I agree as well.
Thank you. That being the case, the motion is as follows. In regard to ZBA 8622, to approve the petition of Joy and Enos Tombra for a variance from the residential setback regulations to allow the construction of an addition on the property located at 509 34th Avenue, zoned R3. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 That petition is approved.
Mr. Chairman, we were able to get in touch with the petitioner for the short-term rental, ZBA 8422, and he is here via Zoom if you'd like to hear that case.
Yes, let's go ahead.
You want me to go back through it, or
Pardon?
you want me to go back through it real quick?
Yeah, 8422? Yes.
ZBA 8422, Ralph Asovoli, petitions for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of a property located at 2632 35th Street East, zoned R1, Council District 6.
Okay. I think we've got everything else.
Got that? Okay.
Yeah.
Back
Do
to
you have him on
West.
Zoom?
We do.
Mr. Lavoli?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can. Have you?
All right.
Yes, sir. Have you engaged in short-term rental operations before?
I have not.
Okay. Who will be the closest contact person in case there's a problem?
It would either be myself or be my fiance. Her name is Kaylee Cole. I believe I've sent up her contact information at some point as well, but it would either be myself or her.
All right, and will you be will you be in Tuscaloosa? I don't know.
During the time of if I were to rent, no, I would be in Columbus, Mississippi. So about an hour away.
So who will be the person in case there's a problem with your tenants? Who will be the person that the police can contact?
That would be me. That would be me.
Well, if you're not in town, that won't do us any good if it's you. We'll need a local contact person that can come out and talk to the police at the scene if there's a problem.
Understood. So I guess when people normally do these, do they stay do they stay somewhere in Tuscaloosa, or do they typically leave town for the? How does that typically work?
No, we need
I'm a little familiar.
somebody in Tuscaloosa, because
Okay.
there's a problem, we'll need somebody to come out on the scene.
Okay. You're talking like a family member, or?
Yeah, you can hire someone as the contact person.
Or you can have a friend or someone that you trust.
Yes, you can have someone you can trust, but it's gonna have to be someone, because if there's a problem, the police will wanting to have that person on the scene pretty quickly. It's been our.
Okay, and you're talking about maybe a property manager, or could it be my fiance, or
So
if I'm away?
I would urge you to do that. Do you also have a set of proposed rules and regulations?
Yes, I do.
You do?
Yes.
Okay. All right, here, if we approve this, it's gonna be for 1 year, and you're gonna be on probation for that year. And if there are any problems, they're gonna go into your file, and you'll have to come back here next year and discuss them with us. So, just be aware of that, and that's the reason for the necessity of having a contact person. So we're gonna be relying on you to make sure you have a local contact.
Understood. I will make sure I get one set up and squared away.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any other questions?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? We'll begin our comments with Ms. Coley.
Okay, so since this is a new first time short-term rental, I'm comfortable with 6 adults, 3 vehicles, 30 nights, and 1 year.
I agree with Ms. Coley.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Thank you. The motion is as follows in regard to ZBA 8422 to approve the petition of Ralph Lasvoli for a special exception to allow the short-term rental of property located at 2632 35th Street East, zoned R1, Council District 6, subject to the following terms and conditions: a limit of 6 adults, a limit of 4 vehicles, a limit of 30 nights per year, a limit of 1 year, accessory, 3 vehicles off-street parking, a limit of 30 nights per year, a limit of 1 year. Accessory structures may never be occupied, and a business license must be obtained prior to engaging in short-term rental operations. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
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 that motion is approved. Next case.
Moving on to ZBA 8722, Tiger Management LLC petitions for a variance to allow a dumpster between the building and the street on the property located at 1100 Veterans Memorial Parkway, zoned MX5, Council District 5. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. And then a closer aerial view of that property. And this is a vacant lot as of now.
Is the zoning okay for this?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Zoning.
For the
Oh,
store
okay,
itself.
MX5.
So the applicable regulations, section 24296, site elements, specifically garbage and trash receptacles. Number 1 states no garbage trash receptacle may be located between a building and any adjacent street. And this is just the general requirements as well. The petitioner is requesting a variance to allow a dumpster to be located between the building and the street. The proposed dumpster would be located on the northwesternmost portion of the property. Petitioner states the proposed location of the dumpster enclosure is situated in such a manner to not block the development from the adjacent street. They also state, with the dumpster enclosure facing south, the portion of the dumpster enclosure that is visually obstructing the proposed building will be of the same materials of the building. According to the petitioner as well, if the dumpster was placed in a conforming area, maneuverability of trucks would be greatly affected and the number of parking spaces would be reduced. Here is a site plan. And then I zoomed in a little more on that dumpster.
All right, where is?
So
where-
it's closest to Southern Gardens Drive is where that dumpster is going to be.
Oh, okay,
Mhm.
there.
Just zoomed in.
And they want to, it would be unloaded from Southern Gardens? Is that where they would go into it from?
That's the understanding, but the petitioner is here
They
and they
would
can
go in that
clarify.
way? So the dumpster would be facing south. Otherwise, they would have to, if they didn't get the variance, they would have to,
They'd have to reconfigure it completely to try to slide that dumpster behind the building.
and what they're saying is there's just not enough room for them to be able to do that. Do we have any questions, Ms. Hayes?
And then I'll go a little bit, the petitioner did send these photos in. So these are actually of the existing Alberta C-store. This is essentially exactly what they're gonna do with this. So that's the dumpster enclosure. And then this is the store itself. Just kind of showing you what the materials are gonna be.
So you're saying it's gonna have a stone border around it. Is that gonna be hardy board above that, or? Looks like it.
The dumpster that was submitted, if you go back, yeah, that is hardy board along.
Oh,
with-
that is
yes,
hardy
sir.
board?
Yes.
Okay.
Now, the gate is not, but the enclosure itself.
Side is
is
hardy.
hardy board, yes.
Any questions?
Petitioner is here in person.
Okay.
My name is Jason Coker. I'm with Duncan Coker Associates, 302 Merchants Walk, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Just to clarify before we get too lost with these pictures that we sent here are the same owner who has a contract on this piece of property, Tiger Management, owns this store and developed and opened this store here, I think maybe this year, earlier this year. So we showed this here as not necessarily as the materials that this dumpster enclosure will be built of, but really to show that zoning for that piece of property was MX3, which is similar to MX5 and it would fall under the same category as this, but with the separation of the enclosure, and we're actually standing on the street taking that picture there. So we got a similar situation there, similar to what they're wanting to do here. They had a little bit more room on that site. They could have situated that one a little bit better probably because that site was bigger and, excuse me, doesn't have the restraints that our site has here today. Can you go back to the site plan real quick for me? And I'll describe real quickly. If you'll notice on the right-hand side there, where the building is at, if we were to shift this building to the west, and to put that enclosure on the east side of the building where it would be completely separated from the street, and in between that the building would be in between the dumpster enclosure and the street, we would lose the 4 parking places that is on the left side of the page that you see there on the west side of the building, plus the 2 that are directly at the southeast corner of the building there. Could it be done? Yes, it could be done. We will lose 6 parking places there. We would still, with the exception of being able to count the car spaces at the pumps themselves, it would still give us 12 parking places, which would make us compliant. We would be compliant, but it would not be ideal for this site. You're only having 6 parking places at the front of the building, whereas versus if we keep it situated, we have it now, we have an additional 4 spaces that will be on the west side of the building. And additionally, the dumpster truck access, getting to that enclosure, if it's on the east side of the building, would get very tight, where the gas dispenser are located. It just fits better on the side, and it works better with the development here on this at where we've got it situated here. To answer your question before, Mr. Ennis, about how would they access it, would be off our southern Southern Garden Drive, but not from the neighborhood itself. We would come in from the new drive we're proposing there on the west side, and they would turn in and pick up the dumpster and leave from that position.
So is it gonna be a dumpable dumpster, or is it gonna, they pick it up, deliver another one? How would that?
They won't pick it up and deliver another one. They'll dump that one there. They'll back
okay.
up and dump that one there. The materials that this one here would be built will be similar in nature to what the building structure itself will be, which will be similar to the pictures that you saw before. The wooden and the hardy board material is not what's proposed for this one here at this location.
What are you proposing?
Sir?
What are you proposing?
Their building would be a mixture of brick and a stucco type of material, and this one will be similar to that.
Oh, okay, so it looked like the building with
Yes,
the-
sir. Yes, sir.
okay.
That is the primary desire, is to make it blend in with the building the best they can. In addition, we have the opaque wall that's required by code, that'll be along the north border there where it adjoins and borders the residential neighborhood. So that'll even further screen this, in addition to the landscaping, which you don't see that here, but there's landscaping down the west side of that dumpster enclosure. So with all that said and all that, and blending in with the existing building, we don't feel like this would be an issue.
You don't have any pictures of what it would look like?
No, I don't, ma'am. I apologize. I do not, but I know the facade of this building, of the proposed building, will be similar in nature, if not exactly like the one that's built in Alberta, and the dumpster enclosure here will mimic that look.
And to do it any other way would cost you six parking
Yes,
places.
sir.
And plus the truck would be coming in where all your
We'd
businesses.
be coming in to where all the gas pumps are sitting.
And people going and coming to their cars would have to be looking out for that
Yes, sir.
truck.
That's correct.
Whereas what you're proposing will be on a through street, I mean, not a through street, but a travel street
Yes, sir.
away from pedestrian traffic.
Yes, sir. That is correct. It'll be, there's no sidewalks that continues on into the neighborhood
Okay.
there, crossing on, if we were to come into the front entrance there, we would be crossing the sidewalk there along University Boulevard, 15th Street there also.
Right. So, okay.
You know, their underground fuel tanks and everything is situated in this same area where the
So people would
dumpster
be
enclosure
walking.
at,
Yeah,
so it fits well.
Okay, any questions, Mr. Coker?
Thank you.
How's engineering feeling about this?
Engineering's okay with it.
You good with it? Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Coker. Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition? We'll begin our comments with Ms. Coley.
So after looking at the plans and hearing what the petitioner had to say, I do see the hardship for the property and the layout and losing the parking spaces and just watching the flow. So I do agree that there is a hardship, and I am in favor of granting it.
I agree with Ms. Coley, and I also like to add, from a public safety standpoint, I'd much prefer that truck coming up and down a public street than crossing a parking lot with customers not looking for that and moving in and out of their own vehicles. And so I think that from a public safety standpoint, the variance is certainly merited.
I agree with my other board members. I'm in favor.
I'm also in favor.
I'm in favor as well.
Thank you. That being the case, the motion is as follows. In regard to ZBA 8722, to approve the petition of Tiger Management LLC for a variance from the site element regulations to allow a dumpster between the building and the adjacent street on the property located at 1100 Veterans Memorial Parkway, zoned MX5, Council District 5. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
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 That petition is approved.
Okay, we'll move on to our last case of the night, ZBA 8822, Julie and David Jenkins petition for multiple variances from the residential district regulations to allow the construction of an accessory structure on the property located at 1210 Oakwood Avenue, zoned R3H, Council District 4. Here's an aerial view of that property as well as the zoning. Then a closer aerial view of that property. view from the street. Applicable regulations, section 2436, specifically ground coverage ratio. In the R3 district, 35% is the maximum ground coverage. And then section 2439, location of accessory structures on residential lots. Accessory structures in residential districts shall conform to the following regulations. Specifically, an accessory structure shall not cover more than 30% of any required rear yard and shall not be less than 5 feet from any lot line. Petitioner is requesting a variance from the ground coverage ratio and setback regulations to construct a 2-vehicle enclosed garage with storage space and a covered patio. The garage will be 24 feet in width and 30 feet in length, total of 720 square feet, and will sit approximately 3 feet 2.5 inches from the northern property line. The existing house currently exceeds the maximum ground coverage ratio without the construction of the accessory structure. It's approximately 35%, it's right at it. In total, you're looking at approximately 42% of the lot for that ground coverage. Minimum lot width standards for the R3 zoning district is 65 feet. This lot is approximately 50 feet wide. In addition, the minimum lot area in the R3 zoning district is 7,500 square feet, and this lot is at 7,022 square feet. This project was continued at the July 13th Historic Preservation Commission meeting and will be heard on August 10th. So here we are looking at those plans. The existing resident is in the front, and then this rear addition, this right here is what it is. That's nice. Okay. I'm very sorry. Thank you. So here we're just looking at this. This is not necessarily pertinent as much as just so y'all can get an idea of what's happening here. Just let me know if I need to go back to anything as well.
Is this SDR?
This is not. No, sorry. It's a variance. It's our last one.
No, I mean, do they have?
Oh, do they have a short-term rental?
Yeah.
Not as of now, no sir. And this accessory dwelling is, or this accessory structure is not a dwelling, can't be used at any time as a dwelling. Just a garage and then a patio.
Was that perspective view from Oakwood Avenue you just showed? I guess it had to be, didn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
This.
Oh, any questions in Ms. Hayes? Thank you.
Right, so we had 2 written comments in support of this. Petitioners are here in person.
Do we have the petitioner present? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Julie Jenkins, 1210 Oakwood Avenue.
Do you have anything further to add to what the staff presentation was?
I think some confusion, so I did want to, and that's where we clarified from the HPC meeting, is the structure, the garage portion is to house 2 vehicles. And if you look at the variance that's requested, this lot is an irregular shape and it is 50 feet wide. And so I also showed the perspective that adjacent property owners, basically their building structures are right on the property line as well. And I have a limitation because I have that Alabama power pole in the back that comes basically feeding 5 houses. And it's set where you can see on the drawings like at 9 feet. So I have to move it forward there. So the existing overhead power main, it feeds all the other houses. The one going to my house could be buried, but the situation is I can't move that post. So to get a lot, or a garage per se, that's actually gonna house a vehicle, and that's trucks, it's typically 24. So that's how this kind of came. And then that's the structure that we're trying to go for, just to have storage. And so it's really just that one corner. And I've worked with the committee, and I'm fine with doing whatever is fire code and those type of things. And the support petitioners were also the adjacent neighbors, so I've communicated with them as well.
This is your residence?
Yes.
Are there any questions? Thank you, ma'am. Do we have anyone here who wishes to speak for or against this petition?
That's it.
That's fine. Thank you, ma'am. We'll begin our comments with Ms. Coley.
So looking at the drawings, it's going to be a beautiful addition, so I like that. The ground coverage, I see the hardship because of the lot size and the lot lines, is that you're already, most of the houses in the neighborhood are taking up most of the lot. They're big houses on small lots. And that this was prior to, you know, the ordinance that is now in force today. So I do see the hardship, and I do understand about the power pole. That's something I didn't even realize, so I do see the hardship here.
I agree with Ms. Coley.
I agree as well.
Also agree.
I agree.
Thank you. The motion is as follows. In regard to ZBA 8822, to approve the petition of Julie and David Jenkins for a variance from the residential setback regulations to allow the construction of an accessory structure on the property located at 1210 Oakwood Avenue, zoned R3H, Council District 4. Voting with Ms. Coley.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, I'm sorry.
that petition is approved. Before we go adjourn, I just want to ask Mr. Twamacomo, I understand we do have a case now pending on that bed and breakfast.
That's correct. We never received a notice from Circuit Court, but I was looking at Aller Court, and I happened to find where an appeal had been filed.
Is it jury or non-jury?
Non-jury.
Non-jury? Okay. Y'all all remember that case we're talking about in Wood Manor? I think.
That's correct.
Thank you, Mr. Twamacomo. Do we have any further business? Mr. Stewart's committee will be in touch with us concerning the bylaws, and we'll be ready to vote on them at our August meeting. With that, we'll be adjourned. Thank you.
Recording stopped.